A growing number of Americans are openly refusing to pay their federal income taxes, all in protest against the Trump administration's policies on war and immigration enforcement. An article from The Guardian is entitled, "Meet the Americans Withholding Their Federal Income Tax to Protest Against Trump." The article reports that a growing number of Americans are refusing to pay their federal income taxes, all as a form of protest against the Trump administration's policies, particularly funding for wars in Iran and Gaza and immigration enforcement by ICE. One prominent example is Rachel Cohen, a 31-year-old lawyer in Chicago, who announced on Instagram that she is withholding her $8,000 in taxes this year and placing the money in a high-yield savings account. She stated, quote, "I'm not paying my federal income taxes this year," end quote. She cited her refusal to fund so-called concentration camps run by ICE and ongoing military actions. The movement is coordinated in part by the National War Tax Resistance Coordinating Committee. It's a long name, and their leader is Lincoln Rice. He reported record participation since Trump's reelection, including its largest ever so-called War Tax Resistance 101 training, with nearly 500 attendees and over 110,000 unique website visitors. Protesters, they argue that roughly 13% of federal taxes go to the military and 1% to law enforcement like ICE. And they are redirecting funds to community causes or holding them in escrow. Risks include, of course, civil penalties like wage garnishment or bank levies, though enforcement has decreased due to the IRS workforce reductions. Cohen acknowledged the personal risk, but said the current moment demands action. Now we go back to the news. An article from Slay News is entitled, "Mamdani hosts pro-Hamas activist Mahmoud Khalil at New York City Mayor's Mansion." And the article reports that New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani, he hosted Syrian pro-Hamas activist Mahmoud Khalil and his family for dinner at Gracie Mansion, apparently to mark the one-year anniversary of Khalil's detention by federal agents. Mamdani posted a photo on X showing himself, his wife, Khalil's wife, and their son breaking their fast together. In the post, Mamdani wrote, quote, "For Mahmoud Khalil, this past year has been marked by profound hardship and by profound courage," end quote. And then he added, quote, "Last night, as we marked the one-year anniversary of his detention, Rama and I were honored to welcome Mahmoud, Noor, and their son to Gracie Mansion to break our fast together," end quote. And then he declared, quote, "Mahmoud is a New Yorker and he belongs in New York City," end quote. Khalil led anti-Israel protests and encampments at Columbia University and has publicly justified the October 7th Hamas attack, according to numerous reports, stating in interviews that, quote, "We couldn't avoid such a moment," end quote. He was detained by ICE last year while walking home after an iftar meal that was held in Louisiana before being released. At dinner, it drew sharp criticism. Conservative commentator Clay Travis wrote, quote, "Posting a celebratory photo of anti-Israel college protester who should be deported next to your non-public figure wife who cheered the rape and murder of Jews on 10/7 is a blank of a choice, Mamdani," end quote. The Republican Jewish Coalition stated, quote, "In New York City, terrorist sympathizers have a seat at Zohran Mamdani's table. Mahmoud Khalil should be deported, not fluffed by the mayor of the city of New York. Disgraceful," end quote. The event, it occurred just days after two Muslims allegedly threw pipe bombs near Gracie Mansion in what is said to be an ISIS-inspired attack. Now we turn to an article from Just the News entitled, "Iran Betting It Can Outlast the U.S. by Holding the Global Energy Market Hostage Forever." The article is by Stephen Richards, and it reports that Iran is deliberately attacking oil and gas infrastructure in the Gulf Arab states, all in an attempt to close the Strait of Hormuz, thus to create prolonged supply disruptions and economic pressure on the U.S. and its allies. The strategy has already caused oil prices to spike above $110 per barrel before dropping back to $88 per barrel, while shipping through the Strait of Hormuz has virtually halted, except for Iranian-linked vessels. Kuwait has cut production. Saudi Arabia's refinery complex, it was temporarily shut down. And Qatar's liquid natural gas terminal, it was hit, taking weeks to restart and affecting about 20% of global liquid natural gas exports. An Iranian military spokesperson warned, quote, "If you can tolerate oil prices above $200 per barrel, continue this game," end quote. President Trump responded with a direct threat, quote, "If Iran does anything that stops the flow of oil within the Strait of Hormuz, they will be hit by the United States of America 20 times harder than they have been hit thus far," end quote. Adding that any disruption would bring, quote, "death, fire, and fury," end quote. The article notes the appointment of Khomeini's son as the new so-called supreme leader. And of course, it signals Iran's intent to dig in for a long conflict. An article from All Israel News is entitled, "Experts Warn Iran's new leader is obsessed with end times, believes himself to be the prophesied figure, paving the way for the Mahdi." And it reports that Khomeini's son, the newly appointed supreme leader of Iran, is viewed by Iranian experts as far more dangerous than 50 nuclear bombs because of his apocalyptic obsession and belief that he is the prophesied leader who must conquer Jerusalem and Mecca in order to hasten the return of the Mahdi. The son of the late Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, he studied in Shia seminaries, and he has a background as an operative who helped build Iran's proxy forces in Iraq. He fought in the long Iran-Iraq war. He battled ISIS, and he supported operations in Syria. He survived recently Israeli airstrikes, which some regime figures interpret as fulfilling prophecy. Experts say he relies on visions and dreams, including one in which Adam allegedly told him he is this leader the world has been waiting on, the Islamic world. Former Iranian operatives, they warned that the Khomeini son is more dangerous than 50 nuclear bombs. He added, quote, "He is willing to kill 13,000 Iranians. Why would he hesitate to kill 100,000 people in Tel Aviv?" End quote. He described him as an apocalyptic obsessed individual, a brilliant zealot, much more extreme and uncompromising than his father, and as a hardline Shia extremist who prioritizes eschatology milestones over regime survival. Security consultant Amin Dean, he's a former al-Qaeda operative turned MI6 spy, and he confirmed that Khomeini's son has deliberately crafted his image to match that of the prophesied leader, including advancing in battles against ISIS and preparing to raise the black banner in Jerusalem after defeating a so-called Roman-Jewish alliance. The article warns that Khomeini's son and his end times eschatology, well, it could drive Iran toward catastrophic escalation rather than restraint, thus making him an unequally dangerous leader.